I'll start the text. So my avatar's name is Jem Burry, but I'm actually Julie LeMoine, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The presentation today is called Flying Stickies and Easy Quests, Virtual Worlds, and Unity for Education. Hopefully I've made something really interesting for everyone to watch. Let's see. I want to echo a big thank you to the helpers, especially Olive Tree, who helped me yesterday. It's been a couple of months, years for me to do something in Second Life. I worked with so many virtual worlds, so I was pretty rusty, and she was just wonderful. And as I mentioned, I am hearing impaired, so I've done a lot of work to make sure that the text is presenting. So I'll just be clicking as I go. So if you send me questions, I may not see them exactly as quickly as I should. All right. I'm also getting a PhD in inclusive design with augmented reality, so I really care about the whole inclusive design portion of this, so it's important to me as well. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to talk about a few different areas. First, I have a little tiny short, like, why should you listen to me? Some people know me and some people don't. So I think it's worthy of understanding why you would consider what I have to say as valuable. Oh, thank you. I don't have it yet, the PhD, but it's coming. The next thing I'd like to talk about is a little bit about framing what I'm going to present to you about virtual worlds and game engines. And again, a lot of times I'm preaching to the choir in that area, so I'm not giving a talk on that. I'm just going to frame the rest of the conversation about that. And then I would like to cover just a few minutes about ScienceSpace, which is a new virtual world API on top of Unity, which I've been using. And after I've framed myself a little bit in context, you can see why probably I would discuss this, I hope. And after that, I'm going to talk about falling behind in my typing already here. I'm going to talk a little bit about some examples in these environments. I have a couple of examples. One is about creating easy quests, and in fact, no-code quests. So for educators and for instructors or trainers who are the subject matter experts, and don't really want a software engineer between them and the subject that they're providing, this is really special. And then the other example, I know C# is fun, but not for everyone. Right? C# is only fun for some of us, right? Then I'm going to talk about these flying stickies that my team has created, and how they amp up the engagement in classrooms and campuses and have. And then I'm going to do some closing. I have a couple of snaps of my virtual campuses inside this new environment, and that's already been used by universities globally. And then I'll wrap it up with some observations. So I hope that sounds good. Sounds like what you think you showed up for. So on to the next tricky little thing. Let's see. All right, so I can see talking heads when I do this slide. I'm always like, you find yourself saying, why would I listen to this person, right? And I think that's a reasonable question to ask yourself. Why would you listen to me? If you don't know me, why would you even give me the time of day? So I'm not going to go over my career. Happy for you, because it's been over 30 years. But I have done a lot of things in innovative technology, and in fact, I've co-founded 6 software companies. I've put five out of the 6 put commercial products into the market. One of them was just a total failure. I've worked at really, really large innovation companies as well. So I've done a lot of this, and in fact, for the last 15 years, I've been very focused on 3D engagement. So I think it's really important, before you take my word for something, that you actually have a feel that, you know, I've done some of the things that you think about, that you care about in this environment. And for those of you that are hearing impaired and are seeing it, yep, I actually did do things like help create the security protocols in net in the early ARPANET and all kinds of. Let's see if I can get my notes. For the last 15 years, I have been very focused on some things that probably matter to this audience a lot. And those are, I am currently the founder and chief innovation officer for Horizoners. The IR is for Emerging Reality, and we entirely in the serious gaming, virtual world, AR, and VR space for education. So I'm like serious. I sort of don't ever use it for fun, which makes my 11-year-old son. But I am very serious with it. My clients are very serious about it. Move forward through some of this stuff. My chats. And I just see that Jack Chingling a bling there just showed up. I am in the middle of a PhD at UCD on applied augmented reality for autism. So I guess I'd just leave you with this. For years and decades, almost, a decade and a half, I've been applying 3D almost everywhere. UCD, yes, in Ireland, exactly. So hopefully that gives you some credentials for me. Again, I think it's interesting to consider, think about what I just showed you. I have a little bit of a shift of a timeline here. So this is the sort of big shift timeline. And what's interesting about this is I'm not going to present this whole timeline because I'm really wanting to get to the examples in Unity to show. But the interesting parts of this timeline, I feel, are if you take a look at it, hopefully you can get close up. And if you can't, I really do invite you to get in touch with me and come into one of my Unity-based virtual worlds where I have a little bot that will talk you through this thing. If you look at 2012, around there, the numbers, just approximating, when you think about the number of users in Second Life, which is the biggest virtual world at the time, compared to the number of users using Grand Theft Auto, I mean, we're talking 1 million to 25 million. Like, the difference is huge, right? And so the reason why I bring this point up is because when you think about game engines, which I'm sure we all, if any of you people audience, any of the folks in the audience are thinking about this at all, one of the most important things to think about is scale and stability and growth and all that kind of stuff. Well, these game engines, they've been at it a long time, whereas the virtual worlds have been at really good engagement. And so this thing that I'm going to talk about today is this sort of marriage that makes so much sense. Is the sort of virtual world combination with the Unity platform with gaming engine. And then the other thing I would call your attention to is the image on the far right. That fidelity, that is an environment image. So that's in one of my virtual world spaces. Parts of that pack were purchased right off the Unity marketplace. And so look at the fidelity, if you can even see it. And if you can't, again, I invite you to come into some of my spaces and see these things. The fidelity is crazy. I mean, it looks just like the equipment in the real world. So we have just come so far to photorealism. And you can walk in there and you don't have to have some sort of Alienware. See fidelity like this image very far. All right, so but I think I'm just trying to tell you why I would be so excited as a person that talks about this and works in this for so many years and a decade and a half now. So I'm just going to move to the so what of it all, right? Like I really think about the so what all the time, like big deal. So there's another tool, right? Whoopity-doo, right? Unity's been out there. I love my Alienware too. I'm coming to you from my Alienware. So, do as I say, not as I. What is it? Not as I do. Is that the deal? So what? So another virtual world appears, right? And so, but what I'm actually talking about today is a couple of examples that really bring it for educators, whether you're in a and one of the examples I'm showing you is like a no code. And so that's why I care so much about ScienceSpace. they have their table stakes, right? So if anybody knows Adam Frisbee, you know, he's sort of credited with the first Second Life to prove he knows virtual worlds like nobody else. He knows code like nobody else. Like he's very, very good at this. He's the real deal. And Rohan is credited with making most money ever in Second Life around animations. So these guys, they're virtual world, what they're doing with it. And one of the things that they've done really early on is they decided to build an API on top of the world's most used gaming engine. So what they've done there is they've just separated the work that you need in order to understand how to build a physics engine, how to modify that, all the work that goes underneath there, how to scale it, how to do all kinds of things that they got from the Unity engine. And lest you don't know how big Unity is, the world's most used game engine, because a year and a half ago they invested in their own external $1.3 billion. Right? So $1.3 billion into their engine. So there's just no way somebody making their own engine can compete with that. So what I think is very smart that's going on here is that some of the best virtual world minds have built a virtual world API on top of the world's most growing game engine. So that should give you and your clients or yourself confidence right there that the best of virtual worlds is coming onto the most scalable of platforms with some of the best fidelity and the best ability to display graphics. And by the way, Unity goes almost everywhere. If you don't know a lot about Unity, I mean, you can do a build that's so similar to what you do on a PC or an Apple that goes right to the phone or to an iPad or, you know, to Chrome. And so one of the things that they're doing is they're keeping step. They're not very far behind with the latest releases. So as a former CEO of a virtual company, this is really important stuff in order to realize and understand and be comfortable that the platform underneath you is really a platform that can grow. And, you know, if 3 people are hit by a bus, you don't just lose everything you created for your organization or your unit. So that's the kind of reasoning why I think it's so important to think about this combination of virtual world capabilities on top of these huge game engines. So, the other thing about this platform, just so you know, is that their pipeline to build is really good. And so one of the things that we are able to do with clients is rebuild every night, overnight. So if something needs to change in a campus or something needs to change around an educational experience, you can get that done for your client if you have enough staff, you know, or if you have enough graphics capabilities, and get that done overnight. So there's just so many advantages of a platform. And so that's, I wanted to give you a real understanding of why someone like me, who's used to compete with Unity, right? I was the CEO of the forward-going platform called Teleplace, right? And the reason why I ran that company was because of Fidelity Investments, and I ran everything they did in every single world and all kinds of 3D Fidelity Investment, the largest trading. And why would I be so excited and come out from doing my work for my clients and give a talk here? And I think it's because educators can get really close to what they want to do now themselves without having to hire a software engineer. I know how important that is. Get educators and instructors and trainers, be the ones that can actually put their hands on some of this training. It is not that, and I don't know how this audience, not that you could not do that in Second Life or in an active world or some of these environments, but you really had to be half educator, half technology. And if you don't think that's true, I think you're kidding yourself. So there's always a better team in the past when you put a software person right with your educator. And an educator really, unless they were in the software engineering department, really couldn't do as much as you'd want to do. Own what you're teaching. You know, so acclimating the educator or the creator of the design of the learning experience to how to create has always been a problem for virtual worlds. And I'm a lover, right? I'm the lover of these environments. All right, so let's get to an example. So I have two examples that I wanted to share with you today. The first one I think is absolutely the most exciting one. So I'm going to step through it slowly. And I don't want to scare anyone. I don't know how many people in the audience use Unity. So don't be afraid. I say never fear. So I'm going to walk through it step by step. This is the first example, easy quests, and how to do quests without writing a single line of code. So you know a lot about Unity, or you don't know? You use Unity. Okay, great. So some people in the audience use Unity, some don't. It's not like I'm going to... So first thing you do, and for those of you that don't use Unity, you're going to laugh at this, right? You're like, oh yeah, right, is install Unity. Right? So this example is about what you can do with SignSpace running on top of Unity. Right? So the first thing you can... All right, so you install Unity. It's free. You know, it's free until you get to be a big honking deal with it, right? So you go out and you get the Unity editor and you install it. Now, I will tell you right now, if you wanted to try this, and I know this is being recorded, so you can watch it after. Yay! So if you wanted to try this, you want to just go and check out the SignSpace website, and you want to make sure that you don't get a version of the Unity editor. You know, after the Unity editor, so they're just like one or two behind it. So you just SignSpace, get the right Unity, then you go get that SignSpace editor pack, right? So you have to sign up as a creator with SignSpace. I know that might sound complicated. It's not. You know, you just follow the instructions and you just get them on your desktop, right? SignSpace pack pops right into Unity from the inside of the Unity editor. So you open it up, go get your SignSpace, and you put it in, right? Now, step number 2, and I'm going to go through this whole thing, no code for you. Step number 2 is this classic step, right? What are you trying to do? What do you got for characters? What do you need for objects? What are you trying to do? Who moves what? What's the flow? It doesn't just build itself. You know, as educators, that you determine what your learning engagement or experience is, and you figure it out, right? So what kind of voiceovers do you need? Do you need those? What kind of text would you present? Camera angles, like what are you going for? What's the setting in a jungle, in a building, in an office? You know, what are you teaching? A lot of times my clients are learning new software packages even, or how to engage with their clients in the public or something like that. What is it that you're trying to teach? So that's step number 2, and there's no getting around it, right? You have to know what you're trying to build. Otherwise, you have no reason for any of this, right? Step number 3, that's just the thought process, right? So step number 3 is, okay, if you know what you're going to do, now you go make those objects, right? So again, if you don't do any of this, that might sound really scary. But if you look at the picture that I have on my slide in front of you, so that little sign that's in front of the woman, that avatar I just made with the SignSpace engine. I just created her, dressed her up, you know, so they have a really nice, easy avatar creation experience. And in PowerPoint, I made that sign, and I brought it in, and I just put it on a board inside Unity. So if you've ever created anything in Second Life or OpenSpace similar to it, however, of course, you have to figure out where the little tool that you apply a texture to something. So honestly, yes, exactly, same process, right? Very similar. So if you do things, you need not be afraid. If you don't do things, I'm in Second Life, no worries, right? You can pick this up, and there are great tutorials on the SignSpace page, right? So, and by the way, I should tell you, I don't work for SignSpace at all. I have industry and university clients. I've worked with more than 30 different university and corporates. So I have a lot of clients, but I just find this tool to be fantastic. And I'm a true okay. So the other opportunity that you have is to buy characters, buy objects, buy animations. Talk to someone like myself. There are a number of different people that make things. You can buy entire campuses from me. I sell campuses. Yeah, exactly. The Unity Asset Store is stunning. People put out great things all the time, and some of them come with really cool animations. And then there's someone like myself who actually literally builds, you know, entire cities so that you can walk into a building and the background looks like a city, right? So there's just so much to it. Okay, let's see. What are we saying here? Let me looking at their site. You're talking about the skins are. Yep. Let me just stop for a second and say, yeah, science space. It is absolutely. And so let me just stop for a minute and talk about the safety topic, because I think that's a really interesting question, particularly given my area of focus with my PhD and some other things, because I'm working with people with intellectual disabilities. So science space is in its early days. So I would say absolutely it's safe, and they are actually creating more and more sort of realms, if you would. They have, their locations are called regions. So yes, and not only that, my clients, I have a number of clients that have what I would call white label environments. And so not only can you access control entry, but you can on the public grid, but you can also access control it right down to the notion where you're white labeling it and no one could ever even know that it exists, right? So almost like, you know, your private islands. The difference between here and an open space in science space is that you don't really see neighbors. You can see a list of them if they're open. You can actually lock it up even on. So it's got that nice hybrid sort of gray label capability kind of right out of the box, and then you can go even further and be very labeled and very serious. Okay, so all right, so let me just keep on going. You know, it seems like we've got some people that are a little bit knowledgeable about science space in here with us. All right, so I want to talk about this for a second, this step. I already said, you know, create it. But let me just go over this just a bit more. So when I think I talked a little bit about buy what you need, but let's talk about creating. Yes, it's possible for students to build. It absolutely is, right? So, and in that spirit, the same tools that you use to create anything, anywhere, are the tools that you use. So if you're a professional or you have students that want to learn to use something such as Maya or 3ds Max or Blender or whatever they choose to create their 3D capabilities with, those same objects are, those same tools are the objects. Certainly can create in Unity. So I absolutely do. Some of my locations that I create, you'll find some of it was created in Unity. Most of it was created in Blender or 3ds Max or some. And just as smart designers, one of the things that does when you use party tools, like Blender, is it ensures that you could then take whatever you create and OpenSim or Second Life or somewhere else, right? So I'm just wanting you to know that it's not some crazy chain that you're used to. Haven't done something. The truth is, all you need to do is create 3D capabilities, and if you don't know how to do that, that does not take code. It takes practice. I don't know anybody that picks up Blender in a day, right? But like I said, that little sign I created in PowerPoint, right? Like, and I put it on a box that's an object that I dropped into. And that's how simplistic that you can get if you want to just start to learn. That kind of said, you know, I think somewhere in my talk I say, you know, truth being, when I think about trying to pick up becoming a creator with something like Blender or Maya or 3ds Max, one of the things that I think that is so important about these types of this particular environment is that someone like myself or other people that are expert at it can work and create with you, and then you can take it over, because by the time it's created, you'll be able to manage it yourself, right? And I really don't, I like that. I don't believe in the morphine drip. I think that the educator should be monitor and or else, of course, designers, right? But that doesn't mean educator has to build the grounds and the water and the grass and, you know, that kind of thing. That's right, caffeine drip. That's my preference, caffeine drip. Let's not get into the opioid question, right? So we'll stay away from that one. Okay, so I just think you want to separate what you're trying to educate from potentially a vendor like myself, like I'm a creator. My locations have all the collaboration tools, right? So they have voice over IP, they have screen sharing, they have webcam. They have, in fact, one of the other examples I'll show you in a minute is sticky notes. They have all kinds of stuff. Those are sort of come to you out of the box if you're not a creator like that, and then you should be able to create the kind of education, able to modify it as an educator. That topic, not necessarily this is me on the architecture building, and we want to keep those separated. My 50 environment, the types of environments, big companies running platforms like this that educate and companies, they want locations, they want them branded, but they don't need to have to keep making them. They want to be able to create the education. They want a certain amount out of the box, and thinking that those are the same people, the people that know the material that they want to share, and the people that create that is a mistake, in my strong opinion. So it is really, really interesting that I am showing you a way now, and here we go with the Easy Quest process, that you can do it all as a non-technical, non-creator person. But you can. So let's go through this one. So step 4. So now I've been a little laborious on, build your objects, right? Get your objects, buy your objects, figure out what you want to teach. So here's the Big Daddy picture. There's 2 Big Daddy pictures, right? So we have a Unity editor. Now you're looking at it. So if you haven't seen it before, don't be afraid, right? This is where you put your objects. The layout, comfortable after couple days of using it, it's not that big a deal. What's in your scene, you can move these little menus around, just like a lot of these tools allow you to do. But what you're looking at with my layout is sort of the classic. I try to keep it in the classic in this snap. On the upper left hand side, you can see the objects that are actually in the scene. And this is actually a quest in one of my locations. On the right hand side, you can see I highlighted something on the left. So on the right hand side of the image, you can see that it shows you this thing called the inspector. Whatever I highlighted in my hierarchy, it's showing me some details about it. Should feel comfortable if you do any of this stuff, and if you don't, how it works. Also in that area where I have the little parentheses, taking a look at camera angles. So you have a whole bunch of information in there. You have camera position, and that determines what people are looking at. So you're in editor. Oops, let's see. Oh yeah, right. Sorry, I'm checking my notes. So you've already added your Sciencebase editor pack in step 1, which I mentioned. Now you're into the layout here. So upper left-hand corner, you should see things like quest object, camera positions, player move, have any NPCs, non-playable characters. So when you think about creating an experience that someone clicks on and has an experience, if you haven't created a game or an engaged explorer, it's kind of like TV. Every 2 or 3 seconds, something for the user and players experience. And it doesn't mean you thing. Even if you're in the middle of a thought with them and teaching them something, what you need to do is camera angle. Okay, so there's a little bit of prowess around TV, I would say, type of or camera or film or movie making a little bit about this that is very easy to learn. The other thing is that when I talk about camera angles or player positions or anything like that, these are really just XYZ coordinates. Right? So you're in, and they call in Unity, they call these transforms. Crazy for you, for open together. So that's what I mean when I say, hey, layer, this, you can NPC, that the non-playable character that's in, wind through an area or make something, right? Light up or answer a question or play an audio file. So when you need to do something like that, sometimes you're moving positions, and those are the XYZ environment. Okay, and so I put a little transform at the bottom there so you could just see how simple it was. So let's see. So let me just move through this. I want to move through this a little bit slowly. So here I am. This is the Unity editor. If you've never used it before, this is just what it looks like. Right? So, I'm sure I'm following with the notes for anyone that is hearing impaired. So you're basically just saying, I'm adding my objects to the scene, and then I add this object called the Quest Designer. And so I'm sorry, I add a component called the Quest Designer. So this is not insignificant, you know, getting your camera angles figured out and sort of, this is like a draft layout. Like this is how I do it. I will figure out my camera layout and I will say, I want to move the camera here, I want to move it there, I want to move it here. And so I put these objects in. I just name an object, I move it to where I want to. There's an XYZ move capability. It's very straight up, right mouse, hold onto it, move it around in the scene that's in the middle there. There are components. So Unity has these things called components. And when I have a transform like that, a lot of times when I'm trying to figure out where to put it, I just attach a camera component. When you're done putting it where you want, you'll have a little view of what the camera will look at. And that's what any user, when they are put to that camera or moved to that spot, will see. And then as soon as I'm done putting it in the place I want it, I just remove the component off of that object. So the camera component is over there on the left. It's one of the objects in my scene. I'm sorry, the camera position. It's an object in the scene. Over on the right-hand side in the inspector, I would hit the little button and say Add Camera, and then I would look at this little camera sub-image that would show up on my screen until it was where I want it. And then I would just call it something like Camera 1, Camera 2, Camera 3. That's how I tend to do it. 1, Camera 2, or I try to keep them in order. And then Player Position 1, Player Position 2. Because sometimes I'll move the camera 1, 2, 3, then I move the player. Right? And so automatically move the player when something happens, right? So again, just what you would expect if you're creating games. Not going too fast or slow for anybody through this. Okay, so let's go to the Quest Designer, right? So this is that special tool. This is not Unity. This is ScienceSpace. This is the special thing that people like Adam and Rohan, these people that are so capable in virtual worlds, have said, hey, this shit's hard in Unity. Right? Let's do something to help our users so that they don't have to write code. Right? And so here you have it. So that previous slide, back for a second. This is the Quest tool, right? So I'm just clicking on that tool and opening it up. And what you have is another interface that does not exist in Unity. And in this interface, you have step 1, step 2, step 3. What are the steps of the quest? And the quest is the learning experience or the engagement experience you're giving. There are multiple types of quests that they provide you. Activity, something you can do over and over and over again. One time, you can only do it once. Daily, you do it once a day. So there are all these really nice little subsets that they've provided for you. Again, this is not Unity. This is their API on top of Unity. Okay. So look down on the bottom right-hand side, and you can see that you are, if you can, all these fields. And in these, say, oh, I want some dialogue. You know, if the user does thus, I want the screen to say this to them in text. Or when the user does something, or at this moment in time, seconds into the quest, 2 seconds into the quest, please shift the camera. And so you literally just build it. Again, no code. We're doing this just straight on Unity. Bet your boots, writing codes. It's just such a great. When I came upon this, I was like, oh my lord, right? This is very helpful, especially educators, trainers that don't want to write the code, even though C# is. Okay. Yes. And in fact, let me just tell you, I am giving you a talk right now, but of course there are how-tos, right? But I just wanted to call this to your attention. They have nice little movies right on their YouTube channel. I think I mentioned that at the end that talk about this, right? So I want to just say, like, so that's kind of it, right? That's it. You do it. I mean, you can end the quest however you need to end the quest. And you can give prizes just like you can do anywhere. in any kind of gaming sort of situation. And you've just done it. Like not once did I say something with code, right? Not once. However, the words that I did say, if you're not a person that writes code has done this before, might get some eek out of you, right? So eek, I said unity, I said science, I said objects, I said animation, file, I said a lot of things. Like those are a lot of skills. And when I teach a long class about this type of thing, I always say, there's like 4 careers, what I just said to you, right? But what's happening as we come forward with democratization of these tools, they become more and more. It is not that you can pick the way. It is that you can learn without having to be absolutely, which you can do sort of in Second Life and OpenSim, but so much faster. So I just wanted to I guess I would say there's just no code at all in what I just showed you, and they have all the YouTube channel. They have a nice science-based sine wave entertainment that you could take a look at and have a better understanding of the process than I'm going through very quickly. But I'm not hiding anything. There isn't anything more to it than that, right? So you could go after the Unity, or you could buy a bunch of objects and you can make those objects move around, set up your cameras. Have to become a creator. You sign up to be a creator. You add their library, the science-based library, and that's all there is to it. Now, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think it would be faster. If you've never done anything like this before, or even if you have, it would be faster to work with someone like myself or somebody else, or just work with them to find somebody that helps you get going. But then once you're going, do it yourself, if that's what you want. And of course, there are people that, like I am one of them, but there are many others that come to the table with environments that you purchase, and then you can just. All right, so let me move to the stickies. So that's, my big thing is do not be afraid of this. This is not code, guys. You can do a lot. And I'm not sure if I put this at the ending, but this company has been around for about 11 years. It just started its beta over a year ago, so I'm one of the people that really started with the beta. I left my last company. One of the reasons why I left is because this platform goes right to HM, right? So Unity deploys on Samsung Gear VR and Oculus and HTC Vive and the HoloLens in particular are too. So really important to me, underlying platform can support many types of screens. And so these guys, these science-based guys, have been around, sine wave entertainers and Science Space is their API. They've been around for about, I guess it's about 9.5 years. So they've been doing really large projects with this platform. They just turned it outwards to creators like myself and like yourselves, like some of you in the audience, about a year ago. And so I was just I think it was in day 3. I was like, I'm in. Let me see what's going on here. Just so exciting, right? All right, so I'm going to shift gears for a minute. So that was about no code quests and your ability to do it. Happy to take questions after, anytime. You're welcome to come in. But let me switch gears for a second and talk about the second topic. Absolutely. You are awesome with your ideas. It's very cool. So I'm going to talk about sticky notes. So I was the designer of the experience that you had in the sticky notes in my previous company, and how we evolved them. So I'm a true believer in sticky notes. So of course I believe in voice over IP and screen sharing and application sharing and all kinds of good stuff like that in 3D. However, sticky notes are just very powerful. I've had clients for about 10 years that have used sticky notes for all kinds of things. So my company built a capability on top of Science-Based API, and I'm talking about them in the notion of flying stickies. Quickly introduce what the flying sticky notion is. So of course this time around I tried to build a better capability than I've built before. You learn all these things over the years. Keep going. So what you see in this first picture is a couple of examples of some of the rooms, and again, these pictures are taken directly in Science-Based. The first one is a whole bunch of stickies, and those are stickies that can take text and also URL-able images, and you can put these sticky packs anywhere, and you can buy them from their store. So my company built these sticky notes because they didn't exist on this platform before, so now they're available, and they're available in all my locations. So the reason why flying stickies is so important, it isn't just that you want to have sticky notes as well as all the other collaboration tools that you should demand, you should have in your 3D rooms. They should come right out of the box for you. It's that when you're off in a breakout room and you have a main meeting space or a classroom, depending on how you're using this space, you absolutely want data, some data, fly from your breakout room into your main room. Some data you don't want to fly back and forth, right? So that's the notion that we're putting forward here with these flying sticky notes, right? That you want to be able to get notes, put notes in these rooms, but you also need them to fly back and forth if you want to come out of, let's say, a plenary talk. Like if I am a keynote, which at certain conferences, if I'm keynoting and you're off in a breakout room, I ask you to go out, or if I'm giving a workshop, I ask you to go out to your breakout rooms, come back in with ideas. The notion that you could have sticky that are instance of another sticky set is what we're talking about here. Not only are these sticky, but they're flying sticky notes if you create them in a particular way. But we have the ability to name them, and then you can put a shared sticky note in one room and a not shared sticky note. If you take a look at this next slide, you'll see that what I'm showing at the top is the breakout room. And in the breakout room, you have a left-hand panel that is Team A's sticky notes and a right-hand panel that I don't know if you can see it on this panel, but it says, you know, private sticky, right? And this would be true of every breakout room, right? So every breakout room have something that would fly to the center room, and every breakout room would have something that would stay just in the breakout room. You would be amazed at how much of a difference this type of thing matters, especially when you have 5 or 6 breakout rooms. If you have not used sticky notes like this in virtual worlds before, just understand that it matters. And I've had so many experiences with it because I was the designer of the sticky other environment that, you know, the notion of wheeling a board from one room to another is just like this physical notion that just isn't necessary in software. So if you can best physical world experience, you should do it, right? If there's something visceral that's helpful to move a board, great. But if you just want people to go back in, then this is fantastic. So we built this capability right on top of the ScienceBase API. And you buy these sticky pads, or they come with MySpaces, and then you put them up, and you can make them so that they fly to other boards. In other words, that board is just an instance of the board that's in your main room or in your breakout. They're the same instance, and so they auto update, right? So just smart design based on just years of using environments. So then we went another step beyond that, and we built out StickyCast, which I just think is another instance of why stickies are so valuable. And you be like, geez, she's stuck on stickies. But remember, I just talked a whole lot about codeless quests, right? So I'm just zeroing in on engagement because for 15 years, and the first thing I think I did with virtual worlds was highly distributed software agile development team, right? Inside 3D in 2010, right? Like so these tools make a huge difference for educators, for teams, for learning and development, and corporates, for anything. But I've never seen anything like sticky notes helps so much, right? So much more than the screen sharing. Like they're persistent notes. You can put images on them, you can put notes on them, and people can share them. And when you have good access control, which you have with this platform, then you can even have privacy around this, right? So I think let me go back and mention that for a second. On the previous one of the things that we have in here is sound proofing or sound attenuation, right? And we also have object proofing, if you will. So unless you're in the room with Unity, the easy thing, if you're not in the room, you can't see the objects in the room. See the room, but you just can't see the movie playing in the room or the screen playing in the room. So you can determine which object you want people to see proximity trigger. Right? So again, if you're a creator in these types of environment, you may have heard of these. If not, they're very doable without code by this new environment, this layer virtual All right, so let me back a little bit. So here's sticky cast. One of the things that we suffer from a little bit when we have sound attenuation or soundproof rooms is getting everybody to get together. So the notion of using stickies where you can only have one sticky, and we deploy them, the same instance of that single sticky that only a certain access controlled authorized user can update that sticky and say, everybody come back to class. Or, breakout's over, or lunch is over, or whatever it is. So one of the things that we suffer from is sending teleports or trying to get people to come together. Well, this is a very non-intrusive sort of manner of putting it out there. And of course, you can get it with a sound, ding, whatever it is that makes people look at it. And then they can just walk back. There are teleports. I tend to use teleports on the ground. So you walk to a place that says, get me back upstairs. You just walk onto it. So not so much this notion of really teleporting my molecules, more like standing on an elevator, physical manifestation of moving. A little less sci-fi in most of my locations, but either way, the sticky notes can tell you, come back, please. And whatever your method of going back to wherever that was, what you're seeing are the users literally walking from that location. Actually, just took those pictures. See in the back of my head. Sorry about that. So that's sticky cast, if you will. And again, just the same use of flying stickies. You update it and it flies it to every instance. I know you might feel like saying, yeah, what? Okay, all right, I get it. Geez, Julie, you're all over stickies. And I'm like, but I am. Because I have seen years of amazing improved engagement when you deploy sticky virtual environments for learning. I think it's worth, even if you're using else, find sticky notes and put them in. All right, let's see. Just getting. I've fallen a little bit behind on my text for the hearing impaired. Sorry about that. Pull you up to the current. All right. So let's see. So I'm going to wrap it up just a little bit. Somebody has their mic on. Somebody gray, just so you know your microphone is on. Shut that off. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up a little bit. So the truth is, anytime I ever give a talk, I always try to have this lady on it. That's the truth. No, she's just the funniest looking character I've ever seen in my whole life. But this is how you feel. No matter how simple I just told you it, the reality is that it's script or the flow that will take forever. And if you have to talk to other people about the script or the flow, which of course you have to, then it's going to take longer. And you will suffer, no matter what platform or tool you use, from what I call the Hollywood versus the affordable impact. And that's been true for started working in and people just look at Hollywood movies and they expect to get that for 60,000 instead of 600 million. Right? So that is the truth. And so high fidelity, like I showed you in that beginning where I showed you the medical location that was such high fidelity, is extremely achievable. And now you can do it for 100,000 instead of for 1 million. But it's still not 10,000. Right? Like there's still cost. And does things like, and even access to second. Sometimes the talent that goes have that fact. So it's really important. I've given many talks, which I'm not giving today, about how to build a business case and things like that. I have made millions with big companies. So, and I've lost millions too. But the other thing that is, even though we have democratized tools, so you can afford to have a tool like Blender because it's free, it doesn't mean that you have enough talent using it to create that you create. You also need really important things like good security, great hosting, you need vision, all kinds of things like that. And when we talk about that, that is where I believe strongly that the platform that I'm talking about So because they did it for so long, I mean, they have had deployments. So that's the scale at which I need to get to, because I've done work with people like the U.S. Army and the U.S. VA and things like that. I need to scale like that. Most of my clients don't scale that big. Most of them will go, oh, we have 3,500 users or something like that, or 20. But sometimes you have to get to the thousands, and these guys can do the server side work. When I look at them, I see so many advantages for non-technical people, but also that they can deploy properly, that I get very excited about this company. And I don't get excited about too many. All right. Oh, thanks, Joey. You're awesome. So Joey's here, and he is with ScienceBase. Okay, so I want to just put a little net out there. And so the net, I recommend ScienceBase, and I am surprised that I recommend them. I don't recommend much. I use everything I can for my clients, and I feel that most clients, have their unique needs, and I sort of right thing. Just to be very clear, last year I put out capability that ran on the Samsung Gear VR, ran on the HoloLens, and ran on PCs and Apples, right? So I am truly, this is not just virtual. And so I really recommend, I would recommend that you look at them. I think they're powerful, and I think they're just, and I'd be happy to talk to you anytime you want to talk about it. I also think that they have done a very good job trying to get the technical stuff out of the way of an educator, but also they are very partnering with creators like names like myself, right? Yes, and on the iPad, absolutely. So exactly talking about that, so you can use the browser truly with ScienceBase. So, but to be truthful about that, when you say I want to use the browser, what you're saying is I know enough how to create a location with low poly, right? With a low count, right? So you need to be very sure of how you're doing your artwork so that you don't kill somebody's browser. But they absolutely support browsers, and you can get in there now and go to some of their locations and look at how cool it is just with the browser client. All right, so I'm kind of at the end of this talk. I am trying not to use up all my time because I just want to see if anybody had any questions. We've got sounds like a couple of ringers in the market. Oh, no more questions? Okay, Marcus. So I have one of my classroom locations that had about 35 people taking class at a medical school. So this is just current, the class ended last December. So this class has voice over IP, video, webcam, co-browse, text. That's my flying stickies. And it has a branded office. It has a branded look. It matched their colors. So there are screens, all kinds of stuff in there, right? So when you're screen, this is just last year. It's not like this is beta. And they just, last week, Joey, I know Joey's here, I think it was last week that they announced support for the HTC Vive. So that's that. So I would love to hear from you. I would be happy to give you guys a tour anytime.